Hi everyone, welcome to the book launch of She's Mine by A.A. Chaudhuri. I'm very delighted to have the lovely A.A. Chaudhuri here with me today, and it's such a huge pleasure and honor for the Writing Institute to be hosting this launch today. As you may know, my name is Awais Khan. I'm the founding director of the Writing Institute, but I'm also an author, and I'm the author of In the Company of Strangers and No Honor. But we're not here for me today. We're here for Alex. A. Chaudhuri her name is actually Alex. So Alex is an author, and she's been previously published by Loom Books. Her crime thrillers, Describe and The Abduction, were published by Loom Books. She's also written several other books, which are in the process of submission to various publishers. And She's Mine is her first psychological thriller, her debut, and it is being published. It has been published now by Hera Books, and today was her paperback publication day. Alex is a former city lawyer, and now she lives in Surrey
That's
with her
right.
family. Yes, and yeah, so this I think there's plenty more that I've about Alex that I've sort of left out, but I do remember that she was a tennis champion as well. So I think was it lawn tennis that
No, I was in the national squad. So yeah, tennis played a big part of my life for about 13 years. So yeah, and I played on the women's satellite circuit for 2.5 years. So, but my ranking, I didn't reach more than 650 in the world. So I gave up and became a
oh
lawyer. So, but it was a great experience, and it taught me a lot of discipline. I saw the world. So yeah, it was really a fantastic experience.
No, I
So
think
yeah.
650 is quite a good ranking in any case, Alex. Ask me, I wouldn't even, I don't know, I'd probably be in the millions, like 5 or 6 million. That'd be my ranking because I'm very poor at sports. So yeah, there's that. So what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna start asking a few questions. Um, so um, we're gonna start by asking you, Alex, that 2 years on, we launched together at Foils in Charing Cross in July 2019. You launched Describe, I launched In the Company of Strangers. So how does it feel after 2 years? How does it feel like launching your debut psychological thriller, and what's different and what's the same?
Well, it feels amazing to think that 2 years on, I'm publishing my third book, and in a slightly different genre as well. But obviously, it's been a really strange 2 years as well, because we've gone through a pandemic, and it's been hard. We've been writing from home, but I've really learned so much. About the writing process, about the industry. I've met so many author friends and blogger friends. I've learned so much. So it's really, and it's taught me to be resilient, I think, because it's a tough industry, and you really have to, even if you get published, it's not to say that your next book's going to be published. So you really have to work on it, hone your craft. And I've learned to be patient and resilient, and learn about what's the editing skills that you need to make your book better. So yeah, it's been a really productive couple of years as well, definitely.
Well, that's really nice to hear because obviously you also have a family. So juggling all of that couldn't have been easy for you. And I
Not at
see that
all.
we have the wonderful Keshini Naidoo here as well. So welcome,
Hi,
Keshini.
Keshini.
Keshini, you can unmute yourself if you want. So it's so nice to have you here. So for those of you who don't know, Keshini Naidoo is the publishing director of Hera Books, and it's such an honor to have her here. And she's Alex's publisher, so she's joining us here today. So hello,
Hi.
Keshini.
Hi, thank you for having me, and thank you for hosting such a wonderful launch event.
No, it's totally my pleasure and my honor, and it's so nice to see you. I've heard so many good things about you from Alex. So yeah.
That's a good thing. Well, the feeling is absolutely mutual, so thank you.
Thank you so much. So I just started by asking Alex what felt different from 2 years ago when we launched our first novel. So I'll move to my first question to Alex, that why did you write a psychological thriller? So why jump into this genre at all?
Well, I guess I've always loved psychological thrillers. I think probably since reading Gone Girl, that was really the first book that really, propelled me into that genre and excited me. And obviously, it's psychological thrillers have got everything that crime thrillers have. You've got the suspense, the intrigue, the twists, the turns. Everything about that I just find so exciting, just sucks me in. But I think about psychological thriller writing. You go into the human mind, and I love delving into sort of the human mind, what motivates people, the sort of the darker side of human nature. And I think that's what makes it such a compelling drama, because it's not just about telling the story, it's about really going into depth about what motivates people to do the things they do. And I did that to a certain degree in The Scribe and the Abduction, even though they were sort of police procedurals. It wasn't just about going on the hunt for the killer or the kidnappers. I wanted to see things from the criminals' minds, from the victims' minds, because I think readers then can really connect with their characters. So with She's Mine, it really allowed me to take that into a sort of higher level to do that. So for me, that's what I love about it, sort of the motivations, because I think people can relate to that as well, because hopefully we can't all relate to being serial killers, but we can all relate to feeling jealous, or feeling having a crush on someone, or these are all human feelings that we can all relate to. And I think that's what pulls people in, because they think, oh, that could be me, so I think that's why I love it so much and why I wanted to write one. So
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer, and I hope that nobody here is relating to the murderers as like being a murderer.
a bit of an extreme example, but it's me.
That would be very concerning. But yeah, you're right. So many human emotions and psychological thrillers, and that's what makes them so. I think that's what makes them so gripping. That you're able to relate to those characters, even if you don't like them that much.
Yeah.
So yeah. So my next question is for Keshini, actually. So Keshini, I wanted to ask you that what made you sign Alex up, and what was this about She's Mine that really stood out for you?
Well, obviously, I get a lot of submissions. I get a lot of things to read. So, it has to have a real good standout appeal to be able to kind of come to the top of the pack. I knew of Alex. I knew her reputation. I knew how hard work. I mean, now I've learned even more how hardworking she is, and how engaged and switched on she is. But I think we read a lot of psychological thrillers, and there's a lot of psychological thrillers being published. And I think, Alex, you've completely nailed that. I think the reader wants to kind of put themselves in that position. And the way I always think about psychological thrillers is that it's ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. And the reader puts themselves and thinks, how would I feel in this situation? I think there was a real primal struggle at the heart of this book, which is a lot of us who are parents or not parents, who love people. How would you feel if for 2 decades you did not know what happens to that child? So that was a real question to set up the start of the book. And then the reason that I took it on was Alex took that question and then took it to places that you would not believe. A lot of the times we do say, oh, it's a twist that you wouldn't see coming. Well, I would say with She's Mine, there's about 7 twists that you wouldn't see coming, and it's a real delight. And so I read everything initially as submissions, and I usually then talk to my sort of business partner who's just recently moved on. And I remember texting her, and it was a Sunday night, and going, please tell me when you get to the end of this, because I really want to talk about this to somebody. That's not happened for quite some time, and I said to did you guess the twist? And she goes, well, I guess maybe one of them. I was like, but you didn't guess the end ones. There's no way your mind is that dark to have guessed end things. And I think that was really it. By the time I'd finished that initial first read, I very much just knew that I wanted to be the publisher of this book. I knew that I wanted readers to pick it up. And I think that was it, really. I always say that it's that kind of Marie Kondo thing. Does it spark joy when you read it? And absolutely, this book on First Submission completely sparked joy to me. So yeah,
Thank you.
so proud to be publishing it.
It's a
Thank you.
fantastic answer, and Alex, so lucky to be published by you. And obviously, the people here will not only will, I mean, they're here for She's Mine as well, but they'll also learn about what goes on in a publisher's mind. So it's like kind of a dual event today.
Of course,
And
absolutely.
you're right about Alex being hardworking, because whenever I'm writing, when we're writing something together, and I'm at 10,000 words or something, and I'm like, Alex, what are you doing? And she's like, I finished the book already. So she's like a Duracell bunny. She's literally, I'm like, Alex, I don't know how you keep on producing book after book and keep being so fabulous, because I just can't manage. So yeah,
I don't think she
Way
sleeps.
too modest.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
She
it has
really
been
is.
hard. I mean, for many years, you know, since I started writing in 2009, I did actually write a book a year, but I have to say last year, like everybody, I found it incredibly difficult with everything that went on with the pandemic. It was just even threw me off the, you know, I just couldn't, it was so hard to focus. You know how it is, Keshini, with children as well, and just,
Absolutely.
you know, homeschooling, and it was
Yeah.
just, you know, it was, the world
But
was
I think
turned
some of
upside
it,
down.
some of your lawyer training must also have kicked in here, because that kind of, dedication and schedule, it sort of shows that being a lawyer, how you
I
dedicate
think
yourself.
so. I think both the tennis and being a lawyer has helped, because it does teach you to be quite disciplined, and you know, you've got to get deadlines done, you've got to get things out by a certain time. So
Yeah.
I'm quite boring in the way I work. I usually, you know, I'm quite an early bird, and I'll get up and I'll start writing while my children are at school, and use that time really productively before the madness starts when they come home. So yeah, you have to be quite organized with children. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think deadlines work really well for me as well, because if someone didn't set me a deadline, then I wouldn't do that thing. I'm
yeah,
really bad that way,
Yeah.
very lazy. So if someone gives me a deadline, then I'm like, I'll put in sleep nights, long nights and everything. But otherwise, I'll just sort of
yeah.
read something or whatever. So yeah. So moving on, my second question is that how is a psychological thriller different from a crime thriller? What do you think?
Well, I think, as I said before, I think it's mainly to do with focusing more on sort of the motivations of the characters rather than, I mean, obviously, you know, there's some kind of crime, there's some kind of sinister element to it, but you want the reader to be unsure all the way. I mean, I think the main thing with a psychological thriller, there's got to be some kind of flawed character who you're not quite sure about. Could they be telling the truth? Maybe not. And you want the reader to constantly think, can I trust this person? You know, and right to the end. Whereas I think that's the main focus. It's more about the motivations and what's making them do the things they do, rather than focusing on a crime itself and uncovering the crime and how we getting to that end.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's the main difference.
Absolutely. And also, I've noticed something when it comes to psychological thrillers. I've seen that a lot of writers use multiple voices. So I think you've employed that in yours as well. So what
I've
is
got
your
about
opinion about
9 in
that?
mine. So
Yeah,
people
what do
keep
you think
telling me. Yeah, I
So,
think it's, yeah, carry on, sorry.
no, I wanted to ask you that what's your opinion on multiple voices? Because some people feel very strongly about them, but others are like, no, we want to stay with that one character. We don't want to get out of his head. So what do you think about that?
I think it depends probably on the story you're writing. I mean, there's been some amazing books written in the first person. If you think about Apple Tree Yard and Blood Orange, you know, they were written in the first person and it worked really well. But I think in my book, because the missing child and Christine's grief and the things she's done in the past affects those closest to her so profoundly, it was necessary for me to write in different perspectives, because it just had such a profound effect on all the other individuals. It was important for my readers, I think, to see how they were feeling and to get inside their heads. And in the book, obviously, they receive a note that says the child is still alive. And obviously that all the twisty and turn events that happen after that has a knock-on effect on her husband, on her children. So it was important for me to get inside their minds as well and see things from their point of view. And I think it has its advantages as well, because obviously if you have one person, you're just seeing everything through their eyes, so you never know for sure what they're saying is true, and you only get a picture of that person from what they're saying. But if
Yeah.
you have another character, for example, a husband, they're going to see that character in the main character through their eyes, so you get different, and then you're not quite sure who's telling the truth, and I think that really adds to the intrigue, because you don't know who quite to believe. But obviously if you have multiple characters, they've got to have a purpose in the story. They've got to drive the plot forward, and they've got to intertwine with the main plot. Otherwise, there's no point having them, because they don't really add anything. So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. And that's what they say about subplots and minor characters as well. That if the subplot is not complementing the main plot, then there's no need for it.
absolutely,
So
yeah.
So which brings me to my next question, which is to Keshini. So back when Gone Girl came out in 2010, 2011, so psychological thrillers were all the rage, but everyone predicted that, it's just going to be for a few years and psychological
Absolutely.
thrillers will die out after a while. But we're into 2021 and psychological thrillers are still going strong. So what is your opinion about that? Do you see them continuing?
Absolutely, I see them continuing. I think there's a huge appetite for them with readers. I think sometimes we mix up publisher fatigue with reader fatigue. I think sometimes publishers say, oh, I've read loads of psychological thrillers on submission, I'm bored of them. I think readers go, I really enjoyed that psychological thriller, I'd like to read another. Certainly the appetite is still out there with the readership. And I think we've put the label psychological thriller, and as you very accurately say, perhaps when the explosion of Gone Girl, people thought it was going to be a flash in the pan. But why should it be a flash in the pan? Police procedurals have been around since the time of Christie and Holmes. This is just a different way to tell a different crime novel. And, I think we've always had that kind of domestic suspense going on. We've just now called it kind of psychological thriller. As far as I'm concerned, it's here to stay. We're interested in characterization. We're interested in character motivations and in the hot water that characters can find themselves in. And I think for a reader, and perhaps more for a female reader, I'm not sure, they want to see how they would deal with that situation themselves. As I was reading She's Mine, God forbid, how would I feel if my toddler child was taken? How I put myself into the heart of that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, my cat made a cameo appearance. I'm so sorry. This is the thing. Sorry, apologies. I think that kind of motivation and that feeling of like, what would I do in that situation? That's universal. That's what we read. That's how we connect to books. So I find it fascinating, and I think it's here to stay, definitely.
Absolutely. No, that's a wonderful answer. And I totally relate to that, because whenever I'm in a bookshop as well, there's a certain, sometimes I feel like, a crime thriller, but often my thought is like, I want a psychological thriller. I want that domestic drama, all these understated stuff and all of that. So yeah, you're right, that it must be here to stay. And what's a Zoom call if you don't get interrupted by a pet?
You don't get a cat to come in front of you, of course.
So
we've seen so much of people's households and children and things in the last 2 years, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. But that was a lovely interruption, as someone in the audience just said. And
say
so
hello, Betty.
Absolutely. So my next question is to you, Alex. That is, how important is it to have likable characters? Now, this is a very point of strong contention. This is like a lot of writers discuss it all the time. A lot of readers discuss this. But what is what do you think, that how important is it to have likable characters?
Again, I think it depends on the genre you're writing and the story you're writing. I think for me, it's important for the characters to be compelling. There's got to be something intriguing, compelling, different about them that's going to suck the reader in. And it depends on the story you're writing. And I think with a story like She's Mine, which is very dark and sinister and twisty, it's not so much about needing to have a likable character, but to have as I said, a compelling one, and having those idiosyncrasies that are really going to draw the reader in. I mean, there's no harm in having likable characters. It's fine to have likable characters, but as I said, I think it just depends on what the story is. But even with my characters in She's Mine, they're not actually bad people, essentially, or most of them. It's more about, they're just really affected by painful, traumatic events, and it's given them a kind of skewered judgment. And it's made people do things that they wouldn't ordinarily have, they wouldn't have acted like that under normal circumstances. So I think there's a place for likable characters, but I don't think they always have to be likable, as long as they're compelling and intriguing, and there's something that just makes you want to read those characters. For me.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I agree with you, because at the end of the day, you have to write a compelling story. So for me, I think characters, yes, people would love a likable character, but it's all right if you don't have a likable character. And I think people put too much stock into likable characters. For one, I mean, when I read She's Mine, and when I was reading Gone Girl, I was like, why am I siding with Amy? I was like, what is wrong with me? I mean, it's like sometimes the unlikable characters, you sort of start getting attached to them as well. So,
I think
it offers a little
there's
bit of
something
variety.
fascinating about them, isn't there? That's the thing. If you're fascinated by a character, and I think that's what's really important, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of Stephen King characters, they're not particularly likable, are they? But they're compelling, and he's one of the most successful authors of all time. So for me, that's what
I have to say that when I read the book, actually the fact that Christine wasn't likable or wholly likable was something that actually compelled me even more, because look at the human range of people. Not everybody you meet is going to be likable, and Christine has suffered. She has really suffered from what she did, from her transgressive act, that kicks off this kind of chain of events. And I liked that she wasn't a saintly mother. She wasn't somebody who was, she's suffering the grief and the loss, but it isn't that she's perfect. This isn't a perfect mother, like none of us are perfect.
Exactly.
That makes it so much more authentic and relatable to me. So the question of kind of, I didn't like anybody, but you didn't have to. You had to be compelled by the story and the characterization. That's how I feel anyway.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. And nobody wants a Miss Goody Two Shoes these days. Everyone wants to have, a character with shades of gray. So that's what makes things interesting.
Nobody's perfect, are they? I mean,
exactly.
I mean, no matter how much we seem perfect on screen, we're actually not. So my next question for you, Alex, is that being a mother of two young children, not as young, but young enough. So how has it been like working with Hera, and you're under contract to write another book for them? So how's that been going on?
Well, I'm just in the throes of writing that right now. So obviously there's been a lot of, went through a couple of rounds of edits with She's Mine, and there's a lot of promotion to do. So I'm just sort of getting into that right now. So Keshini is very understanding with, having two boys herself. She knows it can be quite, tough sort of fitting it in, but I'm about to get really stuck into that now. And obviously the children will be going back to school soon, so that will really help. But as I said before, it's really about being disciplined and just finding a time to work in the day and just getting my writing hours in. But I'm naturally quite a disciplined person, so that helps. But it has been hard. I have to say, last year was a bit of a nightmare because my husband was home, kids were home. So my husband took over this desk that I'm sitting at now, which was my writing desk, because he's a lawyer, so he needs loads of desk space and he's always on conference calls. So I was kind of shifting from the dining room to the kitchen to the living room to make space for everybody else. So that was quite hard to really focus, but fingers crossed things are going back to normal now. So it'll be all guns blazing.
Thank you for this wonderful answer. My next question for Keshini, this one is that how much input do you give your authors when it comes to choosing their second book? Like what do you want from the second book? So how much input do you give them?
Well, it really depends on that particular author. You know, it may be that some people say, well, this is going to be the second book, and you know, and kind of deliver it to me fully formed. The one thing I would say, and we chatted about this a bit, haven't we, Alex, is once you start to brand an author and break an author into a particular genre, it's much better to keep in that genre. You know, there's no point writing a rom-com for your first book and then a western for your second, because the readership doesn't really know where to go with that. So we're working out at the moment with the kind of second one, but you know, I'm lucky that Alex has written another psychological thriller. She hasn't gone off and written me a sci-fi or hard fantasy or something like that. So
absolutely,
you know, usually we would unless you're going to give me a big shock when you deliver the book, and you know, it's it's kind of Tolkien, but I think I think it is quite, I would input in that way, kind of, as I say, as much as the writer wants, but I do, once we start, you know, with the first book and you put a lot of work into breaking that first book, you do want to follow up with something in that same genre, so that reader goes, okay, that's A.A. Chaudhuri's first book, I really loved that first one, I'm going to go for the second one, you know, just to kind of keep the readership on track, I think, with that.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for your answer, Keshini. This question was actually from Helene Kist, who's a wonderful author herself, a crime author. So I was like, okay, I'm going to ask. I really like this question. And there were so many questions coming in. I don't think we have the kind of time to answer them all, but I'll try my best. So I'm all out of questions now. But there's one question that keeps coming up. A lot of people have direct messaged me about it, which is to Keshini, that what are you looking for?
What am I looking for? Well, Hera published commercial fiction across the spectrum, from like women's fiction all the way through to crime. So crime can be, you know, kind of high concept thrillers, can be psychological thrillers. I'm personally a massive fan of psychological thrillers, so I love to read them. Police procedurals, kind of detective novels, serial killer thrillers, you know, anything that, you know, is going to chart highly in a kind of Amazon, Kobo, Apple chart. You know, commercial genre fiction that has a really good hooks are important. You know, if you could come and tell me in one line what your book is about, how it would differ from many other books on the market. If it's a bit kind of nebulous and you say, well, it's life and love and the human condition, that's beautiful, but that makes it quite hard for me to sell or to kind of get a handle on. So I think having a really good idea of, you know, if you are pitching to somebody, having a really good idea of the kind of genre that you're writing in, and making sure that it fits into something that Hera would do. But yeah, I would say women's fiction, commercial women's fiction, high concept kind of rom-coms, things like that, and then crime fiction. There are, you know, kind of big genres that work really well for us, and the ones that we're particularly interested in and we love to read.
Thank you so much for this wonderful answer, and I'm sure a lot of people are taking notes now. And yeah, so people just go ahead and check out Hera
Absolutely.
books.
No, we're always commissioning, you know, we're if you look on the Hera Books website, we do take I can see a question about, do we take unsolicited manuscripts? Absolutely. We've got a submissions pipeline. You know, have a look at the guidelines on there. They're pretty simple, full word document. I know that some people like 3 chapters. I don't, because if I get to the end of those 3 chapters and it's a good book and I want to read on straight. Synopsis, tell me a little bit about yourself in the covering letter, but absolutely, you know, don't feel that if you haven't got an agent already that you can't submit to us. You can definitely submit to us.
Well, that's really reassuring for a lot of people, because yeah, you see, getting an agent is, again, it's such a huge task. So yeah, this is a nice way, you offer a nice way for an author to get published, so that's really nice.
Absolutely.
And so there's this one really good question that came up from Humera, which is to you, Alex, that do authors read their reviews?
Oh gosh.
What did I say about this, Alex?
They do, but they shouldn't always. I read them.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I read, I mean, it's very hard not to read the reviews just because you put your heart and soul, blood, sweat and tears in it, and it's your baby, and you know, you want people to like your book and everything. So yeah, you do read them, and I think the trick is not to take to heart, which I'm learning, the slightly less complimentary ones, because not everyone is going to like your book, and you know, I'd be a fool to think everybody would. It's not. That's the thing about writing, isn't it? It's so subjective, and that's why not everyone gets, you know, taken on by a publisher, even if their book is brilliant, because it's so subjective. So, but it is hard. I mean, when you get the really sort of almost sort of scathing, they feel so awful, and you think, was it necessary to say that? I mean, just say, you know, it's not really constructive criticism, and I find that quite hard. Luckily they're few and far between, but yeah, I do read
that's
them.
what I like. That's what I like to say, that for every bad review there are like 5 good ones. So
Yeah,
but it's
and
just
we really
human
do
nature that
appreciate
I
we
think it's
appreciate
human
the
nature
good
that
ones.
we get fixated on the bad ones. It's just human nature.
Yeah,
Nobody can change it, so it's just
it's funny, isn't it? Because you could get 10 brilliant reviews and you get 1 bad review and it feels like the end of the world, and you just think, no, but why am I focusing on that and not the 10 really good ones?
But as you say, Awais, it's totally human nature. We sort of filter out all the fabulous things that people say about us, and we hyper focus on this one little thing, you know, which is why I say to any author, if you want to read the reviews, but really, I always think about the mentality of somebody who's booted up their laptop, gone to write some vitriolic review, which hasn't, as you say, Alex, got any kind of constructive criticism. And then we take that to heart and we let that affect us. And actually that shouldn't. We should really just be happy that people are enjoying it. So, you know, I'm always, don't read the reviews, stay away, you just keep on writing.
Absolutely. And I love what Goodreads does. So if you get a bad review and you click on it, then there's this little message from Goodreads, okay, relax, you got a bad review. That doesn't mean anything. So try not to engage with the reviewer. So which is a very good thing. So I remember when I got a really bad review, so that really helped me, that little message from Goodreads. So
it annoys me when people put a 1-star and say, this came in really bad packaging.
I mean, really.
You see, but sometimes the opposite is true as well. So I got a 5-star review, and someone said, not a very good book. I was like, why did you give it 5 stars?
Yeah,
so sometimes
clearly hasn't understood the rating system, but that's okay.
So I was like, I'm totally happy with this. It's the 5 stars is totally fine. I'm glad you didn't like it. So okay, so I'll just see if there's another nice. There's so many questions, but I think a lot of them you've already answered. So Danielle must be choosing the best ones now. Let me see.
I saw one from Tessa. I think Tessa asked one about creative writing course. Did she?
Oh yes, I think I missed it. So maybe you can answer that then.
Yeah, well, I actually haven't, but I kind of wish I had. I know you did, Awais. You were on the Faber course, and I'm sure you learnt a great deal. But because I went from law straight into writing, I didn't really have the time to do that. But I hear that they're very invaluable, and maybe if I go back in time, I would. But
no, I absolutely, I totally swear by writing courses, because for people like me, I mean, for a Pakistani author who didn't know anything about writing or about agents or publishing or anything, so for me they were like a very enlightening experience, and I learned so much. And that's they set the base for me, because I had no connections at all anywhere. So that was my first connection into the industry. So I totally recommend creative writing courses. If you have the money, then definitely invest in them. So guys who are sending me private messages, can you also send them to Danielle, so that she knows that you've asked that question and she can evaluate that question. So I have a really good question actually, and this is a very controversial sort of question, but I feel it's a good one. This is from Faraz. He asks, so this is I think for Keshini, is there a particular reason that we're seeing a lot more of women fiction currently in the top New York Times bestsellers, and half of them are either women fiction or based on a female protagonist? Is that what is in demand now?
I think that women have always been the most voracious book readers. I think they're actually, it's a cliche, isn't it? But we do, sorry. We do tend to say that men read non-fiction and women read fiction. It was always the kind of received wisdom back in the past. So I don't know. I think that, it's funny because I've just been out to meet a male author, and he's written a crime fiction novel in which the characters are all women. And I said, oh, why did you do that? And he said, the story just flowed better through female characters. And so I don't know, perhaps, again, cliches and stereotypes, perhaps that you are able to be more empathetic, perhaps you're able to, kind of understand people a little bit more. I don't know why it is, but I do know that women kind of make up more fiction readers than men, so perhaps we just kind of want to see ourselves represented. And obviously we've got years and years to balance out of male protagonists, so why not?
Absolutely. No, that's a very good question, answer, and totally makes sense as well. So yeah, thank you so much for this. And okay, let me see a final question, and then I can sort of ask Danielle, and she can let us know who the winners are, because there's so many questions, and everyone has asked some really amazing questions. Okay, so yeah, so this one is a good one for Alex. Which one is more fun, crime or psychological?
Psychological, without a doubt. And I'm not just saying that because Keshini is here. I just love it, as I said before, just exploring the mindset of people and exploring what motivates them, because it just has so much scope. There's just so much you can, whether it's a person's childhood or a previous trauma, something that's motivated them to act in the way they do. You can really just get into their mind and just do so many great things with it and just suck the readers in. So I just find that far more compelling for me as a writer, because as I said, I just really like going into, especially the darker side of human nature. I did that even with The Scribe and the Abduction. As I said, it wasn't just about hunting down the culprit and following the police procedure. It was about really getting into their mindsets and what's the backstory, what's happened to them, what's motivated them. So for me, I would much prefer to write one. That's not to say I won't write. I am planning on writing another Kramer Carver book eventually, but for me right now, the psychological thriller wins hands down.
Brilliant.
So,
Brilliant.
yeah.
No, I agree with you. And now for just a couple of fun questions, nothing related to writing, but just to publishing. So for my question for Keshini is that what does a usual day look like in a publisher's life? So what is your usual day like?
It's quite busy. I don't actually get as much time, unless I've got an edit deadline. I don't actually get as much time to read as I would like, but it can be anything really. It can be might be looking at the Twitter feed. I might be getting some graphics sorted out that we can use on social media. I might be writing an artwork brief, because I write the artwork briefs to decide what the jacket is going to look like. Coming up with copy. You wouldn't believe, guys, how difficult it is to write jacket copy. You've got to basically condense down 90,000 words of a novel into about 120 enticing, appealing words with a kind of standout hook and make that exciting. If I have edit deadlines, Alex, I edit quite a lot. So, I will send out quite a lot, but, I really enjoy that aspect of it, that you can really engage with it. So yeah, no 2 days are ever the same, really. There's always quite a lot of different things. I wish it would just be like, get the book in and publish the book, but there's a lot of things around that as well.
I don't know how you do it. Just managing them.
I'm like, I just don't understand the lives of agents and publishers. I'm like, where do you find the time to do normal human stuff? It's just
I don't
insane.
really, I ignore my kids quite a lot, and sort of hold myself up behind a laptop quite a lot. But again, cliche, isn't it? Find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. You told me as a 7-year-old who just life was books, loved reading, one day you're going to be the one helping create these books. Dream job. Amazing. I'm so thrilled and so grateful and lucky, really.
Yeah, no, I think you've done a fabulous job and you're continuing to do such a fabulous job. And we all love your books. And
Great.
yeah, so can't wait to read other Hera books as well, in addition to Alex's. And Alex, my final question to you is, can you tell the viewers a little bit about your favorite books? So
My favorite books. Gosh, there's so many.
apart from, right, apart from
Sorry?
In the Company, I was like, apart from In the
Apart from
Company
No
of
Honor and The Company of Strangers.
which ones are your favorite?
Which are fabulous books. Going back, I've been a big fan of John Grisham for a long, long time. I guess he's what really propelled me to write thrillers and get into that genre. But lately, there's been some amazing Hera books. Ruby Speechley is a great author. She writes so many amazing psychological thrillers. Who else? I love Blood Orange, Apple Tree Yard, all those kind of books, Silent Patient. All of those books I loved. What else? Gosh, you put me on the spot.
So that's
you can
easy.
see
What's
you can see my
launch
shelf
without
here.
putting you on the spot?
Just all these books, all the kind of psychological thriller genre.
Yeah. No, of course. I can totally understand, Alex. And these are some really nice suggestions. And sorry for putting you on the spot, but I thought that,
I really like spy thrillers as well. I really like spy thrillers. I was quite a big Tom Clancy fan when I was younger. I used to read all his books. I really enjoyed those. But good friend of mine, E.C. Scullion, she writes for Red Door Press, and she's written a brilliant series, Intruders and Evaders, and that's a really, really good modern day spy thriller as well. So there's just so many books out there. I could just name about 50 to 100 of them probably. So.
But yeah, it's that's the thing about this industry. You as a writer, I keep reading as much as I can. I keep buying books that I'll never read. But then
we see when you go to the bookshop, actually, I see that you come back with a big stack of books. It's fabulous. I'm
like, even if I don't end up reading them, at least I've supported the industry in my own way.
Absolutely.
So that's what I take away from all these books.
And we've got some great authors, obviously, AIFE authors as well. So Alan Gorovitz's books. His books are amazing, and Helene. So there's so many talented authors out there.
Helene, Alan, Alex, obviously. There's so many amazing authors at AIFE authors. I've been raving about them for so long. I don't think people believe me anymore.
Brilliant stable of authors.
Yeah. But okay, so what I'll do now is that I will announce the winners. So we have quite a few winners. The first winner is actually Homera. So Homera's question was about psychological thrillers. Most of the time is connecting emotions with actions. So it was a very long question, but that is the first winner. She's the first winner. The second winner is Arij, when she asked which one is more fun to create, psychological or crime. The third winner is Minal Maan, who asked a question about what's your Hogwarts house. So that really amused Danielle. So yes, so third winner is Minal. The fourth winner is again Arij, with about her second book, Expectations. Okay, so and the fifth winner is who's the fifth one? Yes, it's Hamna. Does writing thrillers make you paranoid? Oh God, that's a very good question.
Reading them does. Oh my gosh, I can't go on a dog walk without thinking that I'm going to, find a dead body. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And the sixth winner and the final winner is Namra, who said that, what do you think of South Asian fiction? Where does it stand in the international market? Oh, that I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to leave it to Keshini.
Absolutely. I love anything that is, based in a different culture. I think that, to kind of have real international appeal, there's got to be something that we can connect with. Like, how does a reader in the West connect to the South Asian fiction. You know, I think perhaps for a long time in this country, particularly, and I'm just talking about kind of the UK, we would have South Asian fiction, and it would be literary fiction. You know, it would very much be the kind of Western gaze of, say, India. And actually, I'm more interested in the human stories of people there, and, you know, what's the relatability that we have over here. I don't actually, I feel that I don't really have enough, I would say, on the Hera list. So very open to, you know, be people to submit to me. But I just think, as long as it has appeal, and particularly for Hera, because we are a very commercial publisher, it has to be able to appeal to somebody who doesn't know anybody from that culture whatsoever, but what is the universal story they can pick up on?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's such a wonderful answer, and it's also such an encouraging thing for writers in South Asia who can now submit to Hera and try their luck.
Please do,
So,
yeah.
No, I would say to like your students, you know, I think just reading as much of the genre as possible as well,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
the more you read, the more you sort of, it helps you hone your own skills as well, because you learn from other writers as well. So I think that really is a must if you're trying to become a writer.
Absolutely. And it has been such a pleasure, such an honor to be able to host this wonderful launch for She's Mine. And thank you both, Keshini and Alex, for taking out the time, and obviously the wonderful viewers who joined us live today. A recording of this will be going out on social media. So as for those who couldn't join us, they can catch the recording. And my parting words would be that go ahead and grab She's Mine. It's available on Amazon. The paperback's also available. So if you like reading a proper book, so you can also get that. And I'll over to you, Alex and Keshini, final words for everyone.
Just want to say thank you so much for hosting us, Awais. I know you've been extremely busy lately as well, so I really do appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for everyone for coming and listening and asking such great questions. It was a real pleasure to have you here and answer them. So, and thank you to Keshini for, she's so busy, so taking the time out as well to come along, which has been brilliant. It's really made my day. It's been a great day.
I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much, Awais, for hosting us. You know, again, I know that you are really busy, so this is fantastic. Hopefully some people might have got some, you know, kind of words of comfort or anything, you know, interesting to kind of understand about the industry. I mean, I think they were quite open and transparent. So like I say, have a look on our website. Anybody wants to submit to us, please feel free to do so. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been really lively and a really fun chat. So thank you so much. And of course, everybody has to rush out and read She's Mine and, you know, No Honor, of course, and The Company of Strangers.
Thank you so much, Keshini and Alex. And yes, it's been absolutely wonderful. And hopefully I'll see you all in London soon. Fingers crossed.
Definitely. Fingers crossed. Absolutely. Thanks so much
care,
again, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone. Bye. Bye.
Take care.